The SEC dominated college basketball last season, and this year it looks like there are multiple teams that could win the conference. So in today's video, I'll be ranking every team in the SEC based on where I think they will finish in the conference standings. But before we get into my rankings, if you enjoy the content, please consider dropping a like on the video and subscribing to the channel. And now, let's jump into it. And to start us off, I have South Carolina coming in at the number 16 spot, which is exactly where I had them in my preseason rankings, and unfortunately, nothing has changed. The Gamecocks sit at 9-4 on the year, and they are last in the SEC in both KenPom and net ratings, and are still searching for a breakthrough against Power 5 competition. All 4 losses, though, came by single digits, including an overtime loss to Virginia Tech, but moral victories don't really move the needle here. Offensively, there's no true go-to scorer, with no player averaging more than 14 points per game, but freshman guard Eli Ellis has been a bright spot for them at 10.1 points per game, but SEC play will be unforgiving, and South Carolina likely stays near the bottom in my opinion, though they could play spoiler in some games. At number 15, I have Mississippi State, who slides back from number 10 in my preseason rankings after an uneven 8-5 non-conference showing. The Bulldogs own a solid win over Memphis, but 5 losses, including one at home to San Francisco, expose major issues, especially on the defensive end. The team shoots just 33% from 3 also, and without consistent help around Josh Hubbard and Jaden Epps, the offense feels very one-dimensional right now. Hubbard remains one of the SEC's elite scorers, but SEC defenses will load up on him quickly, and Chris Jans' teams are usually reliable, which makes this downturn surprising to me, and conference play won't be easy, and unless a third scorer emerges soon, Mississippi State looks headed for a long season. Ole Miss checks in at my number 14 spot, and they're also 8-5 through the non-conference stretch, and it was filled with inconsistency. The Rebels dropped all 5 games against Power 5 opponents, yet the defense still remains elite actually, as they're holding teams to just 41% shooting, and Malik Dia continues to lead the way for the Rebels, averaging 14.5 points and 7.5 rebounds per game, but the offensive rhythm has been hard to find, and rebounding is a major concern for them. Ole Miss ranks last in the SEC in rebounds per game right now, and despite returning much of last year's Sweet 16 roster, the chemistry just hasn't clicked yet, and SEC play will test their defensive ceiling, but without improvement on the glass and on the offensive end, climbing through the standings will be difficult. At number 13, I have Missouri, despite a 10-3 record so far, but the Tigers raced out to an 8-0 start before reality hit, which included some blowout losses to both Illinois and Kansas. And Missouri's number 361 ranked non-conference schedule left them exposed once the competition increased, and they're 0-2 against top 70 net teams. Mark Mitchell has been productive though, but his turnovers are up, and outside shooting remains an issue at just 27% from 3, and injuries also hasn't helped this team, but the expectations from myself for the Tigers were definitely higher, and their SEC opener against Florida will be a defining moment for them, and we'll really see which way they're going to go, because Missouri still has talent, but unless it proves it can compete physically, the NCAA tournament path looks shaky right now. Next at number 12, I have Texas A&M, who is 10-3 so far this year under first-year coach Bucky McMillan, and the Aggies have flashed some offensive brilliance at times, especially recently as they're averaging 115 points over their last 3 games, though that did come against some weaker competition. But Bucky McMillan's old-school pass-heavy offense has A&M ranked 3rd nationally in assists per field goals, but isolation scoring remains a concern heading into SEC play, as they really don't have a go-to guy there. Losses to Oklahoma State, UCF, and SMU limit the resume, with Pitt standing as the lone top 100 win as of right now, and early conference games will reveal whether the system holds up against elite athletes that we see in the SEC, but the floor looks solid for this year, but sustained success will depend on the offensive adaptability to league play. Oklahoma comes in at the number 11 spot, which is down slightly from the number 9 preseason ranking I gave them, but currently they're 10-3 on the year and have one of the SEC's most efficient offenses. The Sooners shoot 48.5% from the field and are led by the ultra-efficient guard Nigel Pack, who averages over 16 points per game on elite shooting splits right now. They also have road wins over Marquette and Wake Forest, which highlight their upside, though there are losses to Gonzaga and Nebraska, which raise questions when they're playing some of the elite teams. Oklahoma enters SEC play, though, on a 4-game win streak and benefits from a manageable early conference slate in the SEC, but the concern will be whether this defense can hold up once the competition stiffens and they get into the tough stretch of conference play. But this team does feel dangerous, and I feel like they can pick up some wins here or there, but consistency against top-tier opponents will determine how high they can climb. But one of my biggest risers from the preseason to now is LSU, who jumps up into the top 10 at number 10 thanks to a 12-1 non-conference record. And that record does come with some context though, as most of the wins were against teams outside of the top 100 in the net. But the Tigers' lone loss is to Texas Tech, but that did expose some rebounding issues, which were made worse by the season-ending injury to Jalen Reed. But Markel Sutton, the transfer from Omaha, has been excellent so far, and LSU's small ball approach has worked at times, including a quad 1 win over SMU as of now. But still, SEC play will test their size and depth, but the Tigers have outperformed expectations so far, but sustaining this pace against stronger competition will definitely be a challenge and something to see. Texas comes in at my number 9 spot after finishing non-conference play with a 9-4 record, and so far the Longhorns have took losses to Duke, UConn, Arizona State, and Virginia, but they nearly upset UConn and own a quad 1 win over NC State as of now. And Texas's size definitely stands out, ranking 7th nationally in rebound margin, anchored by Matas Vokataitis, who leads the team in scoring at nearly 16 points per game. And the offense has been better than I expected, though the defensive consistency remains a work in progress and something that we saw in the non-conference. And SEC play will reveal whether Texas's physicality translates into wins, but the tools are there for a competitive conference run, and I think we're going to see them pick up some upset wins throughout SEC play. But the biggest mover for me from the preseason to now is Georgia, who jumped up to number 8 after being picked 14th in the preseason by me. The Bulldogs are 12-1, ranked 22nd in the net, and sit just outside the KenPom top 25. And so far this year, Georgia's offense has been absolutely electric, averaging nearly 100 points per game and playing at the second fastest tempo nationally. Jeremiah Wilkinson leads the attack, finishing at an elite rate inside the arc, and Blue Cane has been excellent as well. And the lone loss that they have came in overtime to a really good Clemson team, though the non-conference schedule lacked quality wins. But SEC play will determine whether this offense is sustainable against tougher competition, but Georgia has clearly outperformed my expectations and enters league play with a lot of momentum. Auburn checks in at my number 7 spot after a 9-4 non-conference slate that was filled with extremes on both ends of the spectrum. The Tigers played one of the nation's toughest schedules, but blowout losses to good teams like Michigan, Arizona, and Purdue exposed some defensive flaws. Offensively, Keyshawn Hall has been outstanding, averaging over 20 points per game, while Tahad Pettifer did struggle early, but he looks to have been surging as of late. But the biggest concern for me has to be the defense, with Auburn allowing nearly 45% shooting, ranking near the bottom of the SEC. And in Stephen Pearl's first season, growing pains were expected, and Auburn's ceiling definitely remains high, but SEC consistency will depend on the defense improving and being able to stop some of these high-powered offenses that we see in the conference. I have Tennessee staying put at the number 6 spot, which is exactly where I had them in the preseason, as they enter SEC play with a 10-3 record and still have one of the nation's best defenses, which is something we've grown accustomed to from Tennessee. The Volunteers rank 14th in KenPom and have signature wins over Houston and Louisville, despite a brief 3-game losing streak that we saw in the middle of non-conference play. But transfer Jacoby Gillespie has been awesome and has stabilized the offense, while freshman Nate Ament continues to flash upside at times despite shooting struggles. And Tennessee's size inside and defensive discipline give it a really high floor, and with a manageable early SEC schedule, they should get off to a good start, and this group has time to refine its offense then. And if the efficiency improves, especially from Nate Ament, the Vols could contend for the conference title. But coming in at number 5 is Florida, who was actually my preseason pick to win the SEC, but after what we saw in the non-conference, I'm definitely a little concerned. Right now, they're 9-4, but all 4 losses came by slim margins to good teams, including tight games against Duke, UConn, and Florida, and they still rank inside the top 25 in both net and KenPom. Offensively, the Gators appear to be finding rhythm as of late, averaging nearly 91 points over their last 3 games, and defensively, they still remain elite, anchored by Ruben Chinyelu and Alex Condon, who look to be playing better as well. But the biggest concern has got to be from the backcourt and their outside shooting. But Florida's depth and rim efficiency keep them dangerous, and if they can get some better production from the backcourt, I really do think they have a chance to win the SEC. But this is definitely going to test their consistency, but I think the roster still has championship level talent. Kentucky comes in at my number 4 spot, and they also had an uneven 9-4 non-conference stretch, but for the Wildcats, it was really shaped by injuries. And despite the record, the Wildcats also remain a top 25 net team and a top 20 team in KenPom, and were highlighted recently by a neutral site win over St. John's when fully healthy and with Jaden Quaintance back in the mix. Otega Owe leads the offense, averaging 14 points per game, but I would like to see a little more out of him, especially because he was the preseason SEC Player of the Year, and his shooting efficiency, though, has been the biggest issue, so it's something that hopefully we'll see be better in SEC play. Health is also a big variable for the Wildcats entering SEC play. Those signs are trending up for them, and Kentucky's defensive ceiling keeps them in the top tier, especially with Quaintance back in the mix, but we'll have to see if that offensive consistency can stay on the better side for them to be able to compete and win the SEC, but I think they have the talent to do so. And coming in at number 3 is one of the hottest teams in the entire country, and that's Vanderbilt, who is starting out at 13-0 right now. The Commodores are the highest rated SEC team in both the net and KenPom, and are fueled by an elite offense, averaging nearly 20 assists per game. Duke Miles, the transfer, leads this team in scoring and has been amazing so far, while Tyler Nickel is one of the nation's best shooters. They also have Tyler Tanner, who is also playing like a great guard and actually skyrocketing up NBA draft boards, but the recent loss of Frankie Collins is notable, which could hurt Vanderbilt's depth. But with multiple Quad 1 and Quad 2 wins already, the resume is real for the Commodores, and the question now is being able to sustain that through a tough SEC conference schedule. But if this continues into SEC play, Vanderbilt is a legitimate title threat. Alabama comes in at my number 2 spot with a 10-3 record in the non-conference, and they also have one of the toughest schedules in the entire country so far. All 3 of their losses came against top 5 KenPom teams, while they also have wins over Illinois and St. John's that give them a pretty good resume so far. And LeBaron Philon has been amazing and has emerged as a star in college basketball, averaging 22 points and 5.5 assists, and firmly in All-American conversations for me. But for the Crimson Tide, it's defense and rebounding that remain areas that they need to clean up, which is something that we're familiar with based on the way that Alabama plays. But still, Alabama is already battle-tested, and Nate Oates' track record suggests this team will only improve, and I think they could definitely win the SEC. But coming in at my number 1 spot and my pick to win the SEC this year is the Arkansas Razorbacks, and so far this year, John Calipari and the Razorbacks have looked awesome. They're currently 10-3 on the year and own quality wins over Louisville and Texas, and they don't have any bad losses, as their losses came to top 10 teams currently in Michigan State, Duke, and Houston, and they competed and were competitive in all 3 of those games as well. Darius Acuff and Malik Thomas are one of the best backcourts in the country and are lethal on both the offensive end, and we've seen them grow on the defensive end as well. However, there are some things I'd like for them to work on, specifically the outside shooting, and also I want to see more out of Carter Knox and them getting him involved. But Trevin Brazile has also been great for the Arkansas Razorbacks and someone that I continue to see trending upward as the season goes on. And entering SEC play, Arkansas to me looks like the most complete team in the league and the one to beat. But that wraps it up for today's video. Let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are on my SEC rankings heading into conference play. Was there a team that you thought I ranked way too high or way too low? Also, if you enjoyed the content, don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.